One woman, many hats. Chef Deborah VanTrece shares her story as she journeys from a flight attendant and NFL cheerleader to mom, chef, author, wife, and restaurateur. Brett Thorne, senior food and beverage editor for Nation's Restaurant News, joins Deborah at La Panarda, one of her 3 restaurants in Atlanta. Each of her restaurants pay homage to her heritage by serving soul food with a global twist. MenuMasters Spotlight is brought to you by Ventura Foods. Together, we make food extraordinary.
So I'm here with Deborah VanTrece at one of her restaurants, La Panarda in Atlanta. How are you, Chef?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here hanging out with you at your beautiful restaurant.
Well, thank you.
And it's one of 3 restaurants, right?
Yes.
And what are your other 2 restaurants?
My other 2 restaurants are Oreatha's at the Point, which is located across the street. It specializes in comfort foods from across the land that moms would make for their children or their lasses. And the other one is Twisted Soul Cookhouse Pours, and that's the root of the tree. It's been around for about 8 years now.
And that one is it's soul food with your own twist.
Yes, it's soul
Twisted
food
soul.
with my own twist. From my travels, and seeing similarities in culture, I decided that food we had across the globe more in common than we thought. I feel that all cultures have a version of soul food, and I spend a lot of time trying to learn what each culture's version of soul food is.
And Oreatha's is kind of similar, right?
Yes, Oreatha's is definitely similar. The difference being, I think, the first chefs in all of chefs' lives was definitely their mom. And even though there's some chefs that say, my mom couldn't cook a lick, but she remembered something that she cooked, even if it was, that peanut butter sandwich, and that becomes your comfort food. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And Oreatha was your mother's name, right?
Oreatha was my mom's middle name.
Or middle name.
Oreatha was an amazing cook and a bit sassy. So I think I'm a bit sassy. I got it from her, and I try to make sure that the interior, the food reflects that sassiness that Oreatha carried with her.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
And here at La Panarda, it's an Italian restaurant, right?
Yes.
You have a dish that reflects Kansas City's soul food. Because
Yes,
you
I
have
do.
fish and spaghetti.
Yes. So we have a red snapper bolognese over angel hair pasta, which is definitely a throwback from my fish and spaghetti days. It's just a little bit of a twist on it where I combined them all into one dish.
It's kind of a way of you kind of sneaking your heritage in.
Yes.
Because you're like, it's Italian, but it's
Yes.
also Kansas City soul food. You've been running restaurants for a long time, but this is by no means your first career, nor is this your hometown. So let's talk about
Okay.
where you're from and what you did.
Well, I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, we want to make sure we get that right. It's Missouri, not the Kansas side. So I grew up there, and I left there to become a flight attendant for American Airlines. I was based out of Dallas for some years and then transferred to Miami to fly international, and spent quite a few years flying all over the world.
And so, weren't you also a cheerleader at some point?
Yes, I was a cheerleader. I went to school in Missouri, University of Missouri, Columbia, and I was a Golden Girl, which was a dancer for the teams. And because of that, I also had the opportunity to be a cheerleader for then the St. Louis Cardinals football team. So about 2 or 3 years, of my life, I was a professional cheerleader.
But then eventually you became a chef and restaurateur. How did that happen?
I was real happy, being a flight attendant, except for once I had a child. And I got it in my head a couple of times, I needed to find something else to do so I could spend more time at home with my little girl. And the flight attendants went on strike. about the same time I got that in my head, and I'm actually walking a picket line, with a baby stroller. And this little baby I'm looking down at thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? I needed to do some thinking. I needed to make some plans.
Sort of wake up call.
Exactly, exactly. And, one day I'm sitting and I see a commercial that said, hey, why don't you get a culinary degree? And I thought, once this is finished, I'm going to go to culinary school. Food was something I've always, really enjoyed. I've enjoyed cooking, since I was a little tot. But I never thought of it before as a profession until that time.
So did you immediately start opening restaurants? You worked in restaurants? What did you do?
Well, when I first came out of culinary school, they said, okay, don't think you're going to come out of school and get a position as a chef. Well, I came out of school and got a position as a sous chef, which was a little bit unheard of. Then I went on a catering tour of the city for the most part. I worked for several different operators. Then I finally, I think 6 months or so out of culinary school, I got an offer to be the executive chef of a catering company. So I thought, okay, why not? And that was really cool because that came during the Olympics.
So what was your first restaurant?
My first restaurant was Edible Art Cafe and Catering. It was located here in East Atlanta. That was a kind of up and coming area. The space that I found was no more than like 750 square feet. I really wanted to just do catering, but the landlord insisted that I do retail. So I threw together a menu real quick, but I just did it because I had to, not because my heart was really into a restaurant.
Right. You wanted to cater.
I wanted to cater. Yeah. Yeah.
And now here, this is sort of a family business. Your daughter is what, the mixologist?
My daughter is the beverage director for all three restaurants. And she also lets me know that she is also the COO of all of the restaurants also. Yeah.
And your wife's a partner too, right?
My wife is a partner also. My wife is a lover of all things vino. So she has started the process of becoming a sommelier.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me about this cookbook.
The cookbook actually, it's a work of love. It was hard. No one said it was going to be hard, but, I guess it's, par for the course. But it is, all types of recipes that I've done through the years. You really see the global inspiration. I've had people, again, say to me, well, oh, or seen comments. I bought the book. I didn't like it because it's not real soul food. I argue with people with that mindset because I don't think anyone can tell someone else what's in their soul. It's just that simple. But, this is my experiences, my stories. It's my soul. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you said, nobody can tell you what's in your
Nobody
soul.
can tell me what's in my soul.
So, what advice do you have for young, up-and-coming cooks, or that you would have given yourself when you were younger?
Understanding that the race is against yourself. It's not, don't allow anyone else to become what you're racing against. You have to stay focused on yourself, critique yourself based on you, and just continue to get better.
That is beautiful advice, I think. I'm going to remember that too. So you got the 3 restaurants now. What's coming up? What's next for you?
A couple of things, one day off that way, I'll retire. and just travel and still cook, but I still, have dreams of purchasing a building that is ours, that, we pay ourselves rent. And the other thing is my daughter wants a speakeasy, and we're gonna make that happen.
Well, I'm looking forward to visiting that speakeasy and drinking your daughter's cocktails.
They're delicious. You'll love them.
I bet I will. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, Deborah VanTrece. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thanks to all of you for tuning in.